I love some positive feedback.
YouTube did give us positive feedback
Thank you,
just
YouTube.
now on
Our
our
connection is not
connection.
just good, it's excellent.
Exactly. Welcome, everyone. We're here. We're back on the broadcast and we're live today again. We've missed you.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's fun to do this. We haven't done this in a minute and it feels really good.
Yeah, we will be continuing to do lives and to show up with resources for you here. Um, so,
You know
welcome.
what we
Welcome
didn't do
back.
is a sound check. So y'all tell us if like one of us is screaming.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
If our sound sounds really funny, and someone is here to let us know, please do let us know. Um, but let's assume our sound is good
Yeah,
and let's,
everything's fine.
yeah, that's the motto over at
Hey
One
girl,
Wild Designs. Hey,
happy launch day. You made a beautiful pattern.
thank you. You're actually wearing it.
I
So,
am.
okay, so if you don't know what we're talking about, today is the release day for the Kano tee. I'm wearing the original sample here. But when I showed up to beautiful, majestic Pennsylvania um, for photography a couple months ago, Jen totally surprised me and had secretly knit her own Kano tee. So she's wearing that. You can see she made a couple of mods to suit her own personal taste, which is the beauty of knitting a pattern that isn't a sample, right?
Yeah. I mean, so often, like, yeah, we design the things that we want to design, but there are also two things that are true. One is we're trying to respond to what y'all want, not necessarily the exact thing we would do. And also, like,
Mhm.
I need to knit the sample. So um, that means that if there's little tweaks I would make to make it fit my body better, I don't make those in the sample, right? So,
Yeah.
it's rare that I get a chance to like be a technical fit nerd with my own stuff. So this was a really fun project for me in that way too, not just because I get this pretty t-shirt at the end of it.
Yeah, and I love your tee. I designed Kano to have a really modest neckline. Um, but all of y'all who know me a little better know that lot of my designs and a lot of my personal style has like a very low neckline. So I like the option of a crew neck here, but yours is just like a slightly wider crew neck that is a little more my taste. But I heard from so many people when I was releasing like doing the UX calls for this, that people were really happy to have like the crew neck, the more modest neckline.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's a best of both worlds to be able to see how it looks both ways, I think.
Well, in this collection we did two t-shirts,
Mhm.
well, two shirts with lace backs, and that's really because we went live with y'all this summer and you told us that you wanted that. So it was a really fun design challenge for us to come up with not just one interpretation of that prompt, but two. I personally love working from a prompt. I don't love working from a blank sheet. So having a, hey, can we have this, made it really fun. And with the more open back of Kano's Resistance and this lace motif in the center front, I think that a higher neckline for a little bit extra coverage is like a really nice choice. I obviously prefer to have nothing in this area and made that modification by dropping the neckline down a little bit. But yeah, it's the same shirt. It's just a little me flavored.
Yeah. So I'm going to stand up and show the back in case anyone has not seen it, because the
Yeah, give us
back
a
is the
quick
best
tour.
part. Hmm. So here we go. Oh, I can't see myself because of the delay. But you can see there's a very, Jen, you can see me? Maybe?
Yeah, you're right in
Okay,
the center of the frame. You're doing a great job. You're hard to hear though
perfect.
because you're not near your microphone. So
That's okay. Good point. So the back of this tee is a really fun lace pattern. And the lace pattern itself is kind of a mirror. There's really only two lines. One of them is a little more spaced out, and the other one happens faster. So it creates this really cool rhythm of like a slow peak and then a fast peak, which I just have to say was like so delightful to knit up. It was really um, a fun lace panel to make. So
yeah, I
the
love
front
this
is
lace.
a oh yeah. Now Jen is showing hers. Awesome. So the front is the same rhythm, but it's just done without the variation. And so it's a surprise, I think, when you turn around to see how the lace is reinterpreted in the back.
Totally.
So it's also a fun knit because you don't have to shape in this lace. It's not a very difficult lace to work with. It's just one set, like a one pair of increases and decreases at a time. Um, but because shaping in lace can be kind of tricky, and sometimes people don't like the way that it looks when you're cutting into the pattern, it can change things quite a bit. Um, I wanted to create this tee so that you wouldn't have to deal with that. And so all of the hip shaping is done without cutting into those lace panels on the back at all. And so my UX knitters really enjoyed that. And there was a high success rate of people being able to actually get through and finish this, which doesn't always happen with all over lace patterns, to be honest. Sometimes people find it too challenging, right? And have to work at a slower pace or take a time out.
Yeah, and it doesn't always happen with UX knits that span the holiday season, frankly. That's a time
Yeah.
when a lot of things come up for people. So I think it is a testament to how much UX knitters enjoyed working on this project.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to sharing those projects this week. More. Yeah. So Kano is part of the Rare Birds collection, and these are for warm weather patterns. Among Petals came out, is it like a week and a half ago, I suppose, or 2 weeks ago now?
1 million years ago, technically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sure it was like when dinosaurs were
Was it the
roaming the earth?
first? I think it was the first. So
No, it was still March. It was March 27th, I want to say. Whatever. It was a while
whatever.
ago.
It was a bit ago.
Not a long while ago. And that's a long sleeve tee, but Jen did share many of her UX knitters chose to knit it as a short sleeve tee. And that was her interpretation of a lace back tee. So we both played with this idea and came up with two really delicate in their own way, but really different lace garments that you can add to your wardrobe. And I think they both serve as kind of a gentle layering piece. Kano has a longer length built into the pattern so that you could layer it over like a tank top and leggings, which instantly goes from like, I am feeling like a slob only being seen by people inside of my house to I feel fancy and ready to go out in the world, which is why I like a longer length sometimes in some of my teas. And Among Petals has a lot of really beautiful, um, I want to say volume, but it's like a frilliness along the bottom with the lace that allows you to layer that, I think, in a really pretty way too, over like a fitted base layer tank that might be a little longer. Is that still in?
Mhm. I have no idea.
Do you remember that time in fashion when it was just always like a super long, tight tank top with like a t-shirt over
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, I do.
I have to say that I like want that to come back in
I
some
think
way.
I think you're gonna get your wish. Everything comes back.
Except that like doesn't have to be from like Hollister this time.
And we're not gonna do it with polo shirts, much less three of
No,
them.
no.
Um, one of the things I really like about this collection is that there are multiple places for somebody to enter, develop their skill set, and come up with things that are really wearable for spring and summer. We tend to see a lot of spring and summer patterns that maybe aren't in fibers that are ideal for the climate in which you might want to wear those garments. So, each of the things that we're bringing out this spring is designed to wear in this transitional season and into summer and into early fall, in
Hmm.
fibers that will be comfortable to wear them. So, this is a raw silk, which feels a lot like, to me, like a drapey version of a cotton, like it's lofty, like an organic cotton would be, not like a Pima cotton would be, but like an organic um, cotton or brushed
Yeah.
cotton would be. And I have found it so wearable. I when I was out in Rose City, I wore this all day and it was incredibly comfortable, even though I was extremely overwhelmed and working physically to man a booth for 10 hours. And you know, it really held up and I was very happy with the way it felt on me in a situation like that.
Yeah, this silk is not like a lot of silks where there's a very heaviness sometimes to silk with the amount of drape, and especially with like more multiplied silk blends. But this silk is a single ply, and it really feels almost like um, a two ply or a woolen spun wool. You know, it has like a lot of loft in it. It's still drapey for sure, but it has a lot more loft than you think of. So it wears very comfortably. I agree.
Yeah.
It feels like a very lightweight wool that isn't at all warm, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does because, the pattern, the tank tops pattern that will be the next pattern in the collection on the 17th is Soft Walk, and I also used a raw silk, although it's more of a sport weight. Um,
Hmm.
it's funny because this yarn is labeled a sport weight, and it's fingering, if not light fingering.
It's very light. Yeah. I told my UX knitters to sub with either heavy fingering weight or light sport weight, but I think if you have heavy fingering weight yarn in your stash, that you could definitely use it for this pretty successfully. And people used
Yeah.
some wool blends really successfully with this tee as well because it is a loftier silk. It
Oh,
behaves.
that would sound so pretty too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
do I need a second for fall,
I
for
want a
science?
second because
Yeah.
we don't really get to wear our own samples. So, I'm sending this one away soon and I'll miss her.
This is actually the only, like, the second adult sweater I have for myself that I've made since I started designing. I have my version of Pluses, the Gansey version, and then I have this, and that's really it.
Yeah. Oh, I've just seen that we got a comment from Skeins of Dreams, who loves the lace back. Thank you. Thanks for commenting.
Thank you, Mega.
Um,
Yeah.
oh, that's Mega. Hey,
Mhm.
Mega.
Listen, y'all have 3 names each at least, so we try our best.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to, I think I'm going to cast on a soft walk soon because Jen and I have planned ourselves a little break where I'm planning to knit something just for myself. And I'm really excited because I don't have very many knits in my wardrobe right now. I have some retired samples that I don't get to wear much because they're all heavier wool. Um, and I do co-opt some of my warm weather samples sometimes, but it's always a risk.
I plan to do some quilting with our break.
That's what you were saying. I don't quilt, but it's another one of the crafts that I would like to get into. Is quilting all hand sewing for the most part?
Most people do the quilt top with machine, and then you can either machine quilt or hand quilt the quilt. I prefer to hand quilt, but I'm somebody who likes a lot of tedious stitching. Like, I do all those embroideries. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it takes me about 10 years, although I finished Susie's the other day, last night. I finished hers last night. Um, although she wants me to embroider her name on it, and she wants me to write baby pizza on there, but I was trying to explain to her, because that's her preferred name. Um, one of the things that I have to give to her is the quilt that my grandmother's grandmother made for her that has her name Susanna and 1931 on it. So her grandmother made that for her, and I'm like, you're gonna get that one day. Like, that's your legacy, little girl. And like, I could put baby pizza on here for you, but I kind of would like to participate in this activity instead. So we're gonna negotiate. Maybe I will
Okay.
embroider a little extra patch for the back that says baby pizza and baste it on for her.
Okay. Yeah. She may one day wish to have a Susanna quilt. I hear
She might
you.
want a Susanna 2016 quilt. So yeah, but soft walk, yes, coming soon. One of the things that I'm debuting, trying out for soft walk is because I really want soft walk to be an educational pattern for people. It's a very template like pattern in the same way that classic LBD was. And I intend to use it to as kind of a demo pattern for a lot of the techniques and modifications that we talk about. So the very first
Mm.
thing that I've done along those lines, like, yes, the pattern has 2 lengths. Yes, the pattern has bust darts written in, but you're also going to get a link to a Google sheet that you can make a copy of. And then you put your gauge into it and it will tell you the exact dimensions. So if your gauge is off by a stitch or a row and you have a fiber that you really want to use, you can still make an educated you won't have as much legwork to do to see what you need to do to make the dimensions of the thing exactly the way you want them. So I'm excited to try that out. It's a new tool for us to include. It's really appropriate for a tank top. It's probably not appropriate at all for some of these more complicated things that we do, but I'm hoping that that's going to help more people who are new to
Yeah.
garment knitting come on and have more control over their knitting right out of the gate and learn something.
Yeah, I love that. One of the places we see people struggle with the most in tanks, especially one that's knit in the round, is that there is often a gauge change that happens when you're going from in the round to flat knitting. And that can greatly affect the arm side and the depth of your tank. So I think having that right off the bat is super helpful. And I would encourage everyone to make sure that you check both your in the round and your flat gauge, because when you're knitting a tank, you're going to need both to align, and you might need to change needle sizes. I had
Yeah.
someone knitting Betty, which is the tank I'm going to be releasing on the 25th. And this person was really unhappy at first with the way that the armhole um, looked when she finished. And it was because her gauge had shifted so much. And she just reknit it, going down a needle size, maybe even two, but it worked out totally different and much better for her. And so I'm really happy about that. But knowing ahead of time can save you a little bit of work if you are going to have that experience of your gauge shifting.
Yeah, and I'll sometimes see people say, "I wish I love the way this tank looks, but in such and such size, I see somebody who knit it and their bra is showing, and I don't want my bra to show under my arm." Um,
Hmm.
and as we have talked about here a lot of times before, like arm side depth, your armhole depth is going to be different from a size chart. So you
Yeah.
have the ultimate control as the artist over how many rows you put between the underarm there and the shoulder. And we're going to have some pieces that come out in email and then move on over to the blog around how to make sure that you get the fit that you think you're going to get in that armhole depth. And
Yeah.
another conversation that is unfolding that is kind of topical for me for Kano is that often our back armhole is longer than our front armhole, right? So if you're watching and you're familiar with our guidance on measuring upper chest, you know that we point out that that measuring tape is going to come up under the arm at an angle. And the reason for that is that your back armhole is deeper than your front armhole, right? So um, the way our bodies are shaped, like that back is longer. We rarely see anything done about that in knitting patterns, and knitting stretches, it's usually fine. But many people will get a slightly better tweaked fit right out the gate just by adding a few rows to the back of the armhole depth of their garment.
Mhm.
And that's something that I did with Kano, particularly because I know I'm somebody who spends a lot of time forward facing. I know that I'm somebody who already could benefit from a forward shoulder adjustment. I the way my body is shaped, I suspect I could already use like a quarter inch of a high rounded back adjustment. So, to get a little bit of a better fit and to keep this neckline sitting where I anticipate it will, I did want to add in about an extra half inch of length in the back of this garment. So, that was one of
Mhm.
the modifications I made for fit. I made a couple style mods, but I also made a couple fit mods.
Yeah, I love that. Tell us more about, so the style mods. I feel like we can cover pretty quickly that you adjusted the neck a little, you opened
Mhm.
it up, you shortened your sleeves, which is super easy. You just stop
Yeah.
knitting them when you want to stop knitting them. Um, and you shortened the body pretty significantly. You like a crop. And like I said, I designed this intentionally to be a longer tee.
Mhm.
Um, when you shortened the body, did you take out any of the volume in the hip?
No, I just redistributed the shaping rows. So
Yeah,
there's
so
what,
that's
4 or
pretty
5 rows
simple.
of decreases to shape the hip, and I just redistributed those.
Yeah, you just put them closer together.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's not, it's a very gentle hip shaping in this garment, so it's not extreme. And I asked because your hip shaping in your tee still doesn't look extreme. It still has a gentle shape, which I like.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, you can't really even tell that the hip shaping is there, if someone goes and if y'all wanna go and look at the photos, I think you would be surprised to know there was hip shaping, and that's really the goal of hip shaping. It shouldn't look like, "Oh, you have made a dramatic A line. It should be like, oh, this garment fits this person and skims their hip. And if somebody wanted to add more dramatic hip shaping, one of the things I like about the fact that this lace is done in panels is there's plenty of stockinette for activities, right? So if
Oh
somebody
yeah.
wanted to come in and add some increases or some more shaping, they could do that right in here, and they could do that in a parallel place on the back, and it wouldn't be so
Hmm.
close to the side seam that you'd be creating like a really sharp um, silhouette there. So these both of these lace garments have the ability to come in and add additional hip shaping, because we've heard from many of you that that's something that you can benefit from. It's a place to add that hip shaping easily.
Hmm. My headphones just died. Do you hear an echo of yourself?
I don't.
Okay. So, so every time you explain something great, I'm like, here's a technical issue. But so yeah, the hip shaping is pretty easy to adjust if you want to add volume, if you want to decrease the length. If you want extra help with that, in our Slack group, that's the kind of thing that either we or members of our community will help you with for sure, in our fit and modifications channel. But I'm more excited to hear about the other fit based mods, or if there are any others for you to talk about that are less
Yeah.
obvious.
Yeah. So the first thing that I did was I lowered the bust dart, right? Like our size chart is built for somebody who is a Mrs., which is like a 19, 20-year-old. We often will lower the bust dart in our pattern just a little bit, because we know that by the time you're ready to cast on a project like this, maybe you've been knitting for a few years and you've already gotten frustrated. And now you're ready to kind of noodle in. And most of the people that we hear from are not 19. So we have already lowered the bust dart some in our size chart, but mine is even lower than that. And that often happens with people who have breasts that are larger than the ones on the size chart, which is me. So, yes,
Mhm.
I worked a bust cup, and I also lowered the bust dart. And so the goal with bust darts is we really want them to be right here. So
Yeah,
had
right
I
at the
not made this
apex.
modification, it would have been up here. And that's not a great fit for me. So I did lower the bust dart, which means I worked fewer rows before I did the bust darts, since
Hmm.
it's worked bottom up. In
Yeah. And
addition to
I will
adding,
say, just to jump in, sorry, because I have a fuller bust too, but I need to raise the bust darts a little bit. And I'm not 19 or 20 or close to it.
yeah,
But in general, measuring where your own bust placement is and comparing that to the size chart is always going to give you a great fit, because that's another very variable measurement on folks. Yeah.
absolutely. And in the patterns that we've released this year and late last year, I don't remember when we started doing this, but we do now give you that apex depth, so you don't have to go in and calculate that yourself. So if your
Hmm.
apex depth is different from ours, you can just say, "Oh, mine is an inch lower than the one in this pattern for my size, so I will begin my bust start an inch sooner," and just convert that to rows. So if it says, "Hey, work 100 rows and then do this," you need to work 8 fewer rows than you'll do 92 rows. A little technical there, but yeah, so it's a pretty easy modification to do.
Hmm.
I think honestly, like every modification is really easy to do. It's just a matter of knowing when you have to do them.
Yeah. It's just starting to understand the way they all kind of
Yeah,
work together, because I think what makes it hard to modify is when it's not clear, and then you're like making changes hoping that they work, but you're not sure if it's
yeah,
going to work. And that can be frustrating. Sometimes just part of the beginning journey though.
yeah. I like to tell people just do a little and see.
Yeah, just one
You
thing at
know,
a time.
if you've been happy with no bust darts but think you could benefit from one, slipping a half inch in there and seeing if it improves things isn't going to be enough to make the fit that you're used to worse, but it might give you a clue, might give you more information.
Hmm.
So yeah, so then in the yoke, I did add an extra half inch of length to the back yoke, but I also left a few extra stitches in the back width too. Again, I often we will find that our back's cross shoulder is just a little bit wider than our front cross shoulder. And so I did fewer decreases in that underarm shaping to have a
Hmm.
few extra stitches all the way through the back upper yoke. Now the shoulders still need to be the same width so we can seam together. So I removed those stitches when I did the neckline, which creates a slightly wider neckline in the back, which is something that our sewist will be accustomed to also, so that you will get a better fit generally if the back neck is just a smidge wider than the front. Mhm.
Yeah.
And the
And
only
I'm
way to do that
excited.
and have your shoulders line up is to have the whole cross back be a little bit wider.
Yeah. I'm
Yep.
excited to see some of these fit tweaks actually being rolled out in some of our future patterns. They're not baked into the patterns that are being released right now. Um, but I'm designing a raglan right now that does have some of these fit tweaks baked in because it will, especially in a raglan, give everyone a better fit. But when I'm baking it into a pattern, I do a little bit of a more minor adjustment that you
Hmm.
might still want to expand on personally, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And then the only other thing I really needed to do, since the sleeves are worked in the round, and now the back armhole is deeper, is I needed to pick up a few extra stitches in the back armhole. We know that in the mid cap of a set in sleeve that's worked in the round like this, that we typically pick up 1 stitch per row in a stockinette fabric. So because I added 4 rows, I just picked up 2 extra stitches, and that meant that I had to work those out in the underarm. No big deal.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I love the way it all turned out. Of course, I mean, I think your Kano is a really impeccable fit for you. So, um,
Exactly.
yeah,
Might not be for someone else, but it's exactly what I needed.
yeah. Oh, hooray. Oh, and it's Catherine's birthday today.
Happy
So
birthday,
happy birthday
Catherine.
to Catherine. Um, what did we have more that we want to cover today?
Yeah, we have a big announcement.
Mm-hmm. That's
Hmm.
right.
Are we ready for it?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, you go. I talked so much.
Okay. So we are really excited to be returning to string theory in Rosemont. Is it in Rosemont? No,
It's in
Glen
Glen Ellen.
Ellen.
Hmm.
Glen Ellen, which is a beautiful suburb of Chicago. So if you're in the greater Chicago area, we would love to see you at String Theory. Jen and I were there last year in June, and it's a beautiful shop with an amazing selection. They have a large space that is perfect for hosting gatherings. Um, and we're going to be there on Wednesday, May 1st. Is that the right date? I believe it is. Um, we're going to be doing a tour of these patterns. We're going to be talking fit, and we're going to be doing a bit of a cast on party there so that we can
We're
help
taking
you choose,
measurements.
yeah, help you
Yeah.
choose your size and take your measurements so that your next cast on, whether it's one of our patterns or another, is one of your best ones yet.
Yeah, a lot of times we hear from knitters that they really struggle to take their own measurements. And I did this at Rose City, and I felt like it was a really big success in helping knitters make sure that they're getting their measurements correctly, to see somebody take their measurements, to have at least one base set of their measurements. Our bodies change throughout the month, they change throughout the year. But, today we've been talking about some modifications you might choose to make if you know that your cross back is wider or your back underarm is longer or something. So, we have a like a kit of measurements. We're going to take a base set, but if there's something else that you'd like help measuring, we'll be there, particularly some of those measurements that are in the back of the body that are a little bit more difficult to get. So,
Hmm.
we'll be giving you that, and then we'll also be giving out a little handout so you can kind of see how something like this might be impacting the fit that you're getting in your other garments. So, yeah, we'll be there to hang out. We'll be there to help you pick yarn, get your measurements taken, and have just like a super fun hangout. The String Theory shop and the team there are so kind and so welcoming, and we know that y'all are going to love it as much as we do. We're looking forward to going back. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm getting all the feels because last year at String Theory is where I met a bunch of people that now are like my friends. So
Yeah.
um, I'm excited to see who we'll meet this year for sure. Um,
100%.
yeah. And Jen and I will both be attending the H&H conference. Are you working the conference?
I'm doing some work with Anastasia
Yeah.
for the Fiber Business Collective. We haven't really done a lot of kind of like peer-to-peer talk on here recently. We've both been mostly been talking about things that knitters need, but we do know that there are a lot of designers and some yarn dyers in our group. And I would like to say that, like, if you have questions about what it's like to go to a trade show, or if you're wondering if the H&H trade show is a good fit for you, um, yeah, send us an email. We'd be happy to talk about that with you more, or, come into the Slack group and send us a DM, and we'll find a place to have that conversation.
Awesome. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
No, I left, but I'm back.
There's an
I
echo.
There's an echo now.
And you're in here 3 times or 2 times. So
Awesome. Well,
we might be done.
oh, I see that now. There's construction happening
Oh,
next
there you are.
door, and it blipped out my internet. And I've just come back in, but it seems like there's some type of issue now. But I think we did just wrap up, right? Okay, so let's wrap. And thank you all so much for joining us. And we'll see y'all in the comments. We'll see you in Slack. Happy knitting.
Yeah. Happy knitting.